Welcome to Books on Air, the podcast that you really don't want to miss. You're about to get a sneak preview at what goes on behind the scenes with authors. You'll find out their secret recipe for creating a book. We'll tell you where they get their ideas, and you will get the inside scoop on their next project. Want to know more? Great. We'll tell you where to find them on social media. Are you ready? Okay, let's meet the author. Joining me today is Dr. Vana Petrovic, and she's here to talk about her wonderful book, Vana's Adventures with Mother Earth. Dr. Vana Petrovic grew up in Croatia. She's lived in Italy, Germany, Belgium, and while she was in Germany, she received her Ph.D., and she's joining us right here on Books on Air. Vana, welcome.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me.
It's really my pleasure. I love what you've done with the book, and I think that you're such an interesting person. Why did you start writing in the first place?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Susanna. It's a rather long story. I have to say one sentence or two before I tell you why I started writing. I always loved books. Growing up on a farm is not a place where you would encounter lots of books. However, I did always find them, and I always found time to read, be it late at night, or in the lunch break or whenever. And I frequently got into trouble because of books. But books and I just love each other, what to say. And so I started writing during the university time. Back then, a lot of unpleasant things, to put it mildly, happened in my country. And I was so full of pain. And I started writing to give sense to my pain, and I discovered that I could give my pain to my protagonists or antagonists, depending on the situation. And that helped me get through the darkest hours. And I discovered that writing is a friend, writing is a companion, writing is something beautiful. And ever since, I never stopped writing. And today, writing, I can say really without any reservation, writing saved my sanity. I would have gone mad with all that pain. And it's like breathing. I cannot not write. I have these stories, they are real for me. I feel my characters. I see them almost within my inner realm. I don't know. I just see the story.
That's such an inspirational story. And I think that it might inspire some of our listeners who may be going through, the world is a crazy place right now. And many people are going through loss. They're going through pain themselves because they've lost family members to this terrible virus that's going around. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you. I think that sometimes simply sitting down, whether it's with a computer or with a pen and a pad, and just putting your thoughts, putting that pain on paper and letting it get out can really be so valuable. And a result might happen like happened for you. This little book that you have written is terrific, and I love the story behind how it came to be. Would you share the inspiration with our listeners?
No, yeah. So this book came years later. So during the most painful time of my life, I wrote books, but I never published those. Those were my first attempts, and they're not for publishing or for anybody's eyes. But they were very therapeutical for me. They were very, very helpful, and I'm grateful. But they helped me to write my next book, which was published in German. And then came Vana. And Vana's story came out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere. I didn't see it coming. I was in my vegetable garden in the Rheingau in Germany, and the neighborhood children loved me a lot, and they would always surround me when I worked in the garden, because children are curious. It's the beauty about children and about us humans, that we are curious beings. And so they would surround me all the time and look which dirt soiled vegetable I would dig up next. That was the big thing. What will appear out of this soil next? Because these children never had a garden. They lived in an apartment, and their harvesting of vegetables happened when they went to the supermarket, to the grocery store. So on this particular day, I showed them an earthworm, a common earthworm. And I was rather proud to show this earthworm, but the children kind of always recoiled and said, yuck!
I love it. I love their reaction.
And the funny thing is, the garden was kind of some 200 meters away from a terrace. I walked back. I literally left the garden. They ran around me, and I returned to my apartment. And these steps, these 200 whatever something steps up to the apartment, I walked back, and the story was forming in me. And I went directly to my desk. From the garden, I went directly to my desk, and I started writing the first draft. The first draft was a very rudimentary kind of collection of thoughts. It was very brief, but right there, the first draft went onto the paper. And I was thinking, on the only question I had for myself briefly, should I write it in German or English? And I arrived at the desk, and it was the most normal thing for me to write it in English. Don't ask me why.
Wow. Wow. I love that story. It's such a wonderful example of the creative process and how something that seems so simple can fire the cells in the brain, and all of a sudden this wonderful story about this little girl with these wonderful characters came to life for you. Let's give the listeners an overview of what Vana's book is about.
Well, Vana is a little girl who also lives in a city, and she visits her grandmother on her grandmother's farm regularly. And she is an explorer. She's a curious girl who likes to explore the farm because there's so much to discover all the time. And on this particular day, she's a little bit bolder. She's a little bit more courageous than on other days. And this time she ventures into a part of the orchard that she hasn't seen before and falls asleep under a cherry tree. And she is woken up by an incredible, beautiful being, which is Mother Earth. And Mother Earth invites her to go with her on an adventure. Vana is reluctant at first, thinking, what will my granny say? And she will miss me and all this. But Mother Earth reassures her that everything will be fine and that she can trust her. Off they go. Vana trusts Mother Earth, and off they go and start the adventure with small steps, discovering fruit, and then they go and discover trees, and then Vana discovers that she can communicate with all of this world around her, and that they all speak to her, and they all love her, and most of them are connected with her somehow. So this is, in essence, the story of Vana's adventure.
I had some favorite characters. I liked the beagle. She has a little beagle whose name is Elvin, and my favorite is the big red. He's the sequoia tree, and he's so wise. Those are two of my very favorite characters. Thank you for creating them. Dana,
Very welcome.
they were wonderful. Now
Thank you, Susanna.
When you and I talk about this, we're talking about it as a children's book. But actually, the themes that are in the book and the message that is in the book really transcends just being a child's book. Tell me a little bit about that, because I know the themes that you have in this book are very important to you personally.
Yes, the book is actually for everybody who's ready to discover miracles. So whoever is looking for something beautiful in their lives can take this book into their hands and just drink from the words, drink from the images I created, and then transfer that and go for a walk and find it outside. And the characters were not chosen randomly. They all represent also a geographical location of our beautiful planet. So they are not just a collection of characters that happened. They have also a purpose. They have a message behind. They're located at a certain part of this beautiful world. And correspondingly, this journey is beautiful. You can share it with a child of yours. You can read it to a child of yours. You can let your child read it alone. But you can just read it for yourself. It's just just enjoy.
One of the things that really struck me about the book, and I'm sure that I thought of this because I'm a former teacher, I thought to myself, there are so many parents right now who are at home with their children. This is a perfect book if you're doing homeschool with your children, or if you just want to read it to your children. Maybe you do it at night. But as you described it, this would get people talking, and it would get children and adults talking, and they could read a part of the book and then find out where that particular section, like the giant sequoia, was located, and then talk about that area of the earth and talk about what was going on. Maybe they even use Google Earth, and they look it up and they see what goes on there. I think that they could be so creative with the way that they use this book, because it's got so many wonderful ideas that could just flow from it. Is that really what you were thinking about as you wrote it?
I haven't really thought about it. I just kind of transferred my inner inspiration onto the paper, but this is what I do every day, so that it kind of came out condensed in that form is not a surprise, because it's what I do every single day. I just love Mother Earth, and I love the world we live in, and I believe that there is so much beauty around us, no matter where we are, and that we are lost in, I don't know, in meaningless, I don't know, sometimes things. And there's so much beauty around us that we don't notice.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I want to make sure that I mention the drawings. There are drawings in the book, and you did those drawings. Are you an artist as well as a writer?
Well, a writer is an artist. I did a lot of painting. I kind of paused a while back. I should resume it again, but I do paint. I do love paintings.
The drawings are just charming. I really liked them so much. I thought that they really contributed to the book. Now, you want to share a little portion of the book with our listeners. Would you please do that?
Yes, I will. And I will actually, fun enough, I actually selected the part with the big red. But
oh, how funny. I love it.
Okay. Suddenly, welcome, Vana. loudly boomed out from somewhere within Big Red. Vana thought she was just imagining things, but then this exact same greeting of, "Welcome, Vana," was soon repeated. Vana looked around, but the only other person nearby was Mother Earth, who appeared to be quite amused by Vana's puzzled face. "I am quite sure that Big Red is trying to talk with you, Vana," Gaia deviously said. Vana looked up to see how this could be possible. She also noticed that the sequoia seemed to be moving its branches, almost as they were arms waving hello. Vana discreetly waved back and then, feeling very silly because she knew the trees, as with seeds, definitely could not speak. She blushed red in the face and dropped her arm down. "I have known you for a long time, Vana, even though we have not been introduced until today." This time, Vana definitely knew she had heard Big Red talk, and all this was becoming a little bit too much for Vana to understand or accept. "How could you possibly know me? I have never met you before." Anger began to rise in her. She felt that Big Red, and maybe even Mother Earth, might be playing some sort of trick on her, and she did not want to appear stupid.
I love it. I love it. That's terrific. Now, I know that we have interested all of our listeners in where they can find the book. It's on Amazon. All they have to do is bring up Amazon.com, and then in the search feature at the top, the title of the book is Vana, V-A-N-A apostrophe S, Vana's Adventures with Mother Earth by Dana, D-A-N-A, Petrovic, P-E-T-R-O-V-I-C. Put that in the search feature, click on it. The book comes right up, and there's a really nice excerpt on the Amazon site. Up in the upper right-hand corner, it says, look in here. Click on that. The book electronically opens, and I'm doing air quotes because, of course, it doesn't really open, but the book appears, and you can read an excerpt that introduces you to Vana, introduces you to Elvin and her grandmother. I loved the scene in the very beginning with her grandmother. And because it's on a farm, did you use your background with farming in that particular section?
Maybe subconsciously.
Yeah.
It looks different than our farm, so it's that was not the background for the painting. But I don't know, subconsciously, I guess I did.
It makes sense. I mean, that's what I thought when you said that you had a farm. I thought this makes perfect sense to me. Then, if you want to buy the book, it's right there, and you have a website. Let's tell them where the website is and give them the address.
Well, it's www.danapetrovic.com. So it's one word, danapetrovic.com. You can find me also on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can find me even on YouTube, although I have only 2 videos on YouTube. I'm not very active on YouTube.
No, but the 2 videos that you have are excellent. I've watched both. You have a video that talks about the book I hope that our listeners will access that video because you have the beautiful Adriatic Sea in the background and you're talking about the book and you're talking about some of the important themes that are in the book. And then you've done a TED Talk. And the TED Talk is very interesting. It's titled, Why You Must Stop Neglecting Your Important Colleague. And it's not what you think when you when you go to the TED Talk and you start listening to it. It's not what you think. So find that TED Talk? How can they find that, Vana? Is that Vana? Listen to me. I'm calling you Vana, Dana. Is it on YouTube?
Yes, under Dana Petrovic. There's the option of the TEDx talk, which I give, and then is the option to choose my channel, and there is only the one video where I talk about the book. I'm more active on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook than I'm on YouTube.
The thing that I liked about the TED Talk particularly is that the TED Talk really is a companion piece for the book, because it reinforces the ideas and the themes that run throughout the book. I always like to let an author have the very last word about their book, especially a book that's as special as this one, because the message is important for everyone. And you're right. I love what you said about how people could read the book and they could dream and they can fall into the book. I really like that. When they pick up a copy of the book, and if they read it themselves, read it with their children, share it with other people, when they close the back cover, whether literally or electronically, what do you want them to take away? What's the main message that you would like to leave your reader with, Dana?
Well, I would. The big book kind of finishes the same way. I would like them to discover the world around them again. They can do that. They could go out alone, if possible, during these COVID times. But it can be in the apartment. It can be discovering the view, or discovering, I don't know, a plant or whatever in our own world. Just notice it. Just notice the details. You can do it alone. You can do it with a loved one, with your child or another family member. Talk about it. Just be. You can take photos of these miracles around us. Everybody can do that. But it doesn't even need to be. Just simply be in the moment. Be it the dews in the morning and the sun reflecting in them, or it can be a sunset or a sunrise or clouds or a stone, pattern in a stone, or it can be so many things. Simply see it and be in the moment for a moment.
I have a confession. When I watched your TED Talk, at the very end of the TED Talk, you talk about thanking a plant or thanking a tree. And I have to tell you that I am a tree talker. We have many, it's true, we have many, many trees on our property, and I will periodically walk out and put my hands on the bark. We've had a couple of trees that have been ill. They have a little disease, and I will go out and put my hands on the trees, and I will say, please don't die. Please don't die. Please stay with us here. We love you. Because I love those trees. I'd never had trees like that before in my life. And there's something so special about that. And when I heard you say that at the end of your TED Talk, I knew that you and I were kindred spirits. Thank you so much, Dana, for being our guest today on Books on Air. It's been a delight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Right, that did so.
Now remember, you can find Dana Petrovic's book, Vana's Adventures with Mother Earth, on Amazon. You've been listening to the Books on Air podcast, brought to you on webtalkradio.net. You can also hear our podcast on iTunes and iHeartRadio. I'm Suzanne Harris, and I truly hope that you'll join us for our next Books on Air podcast. Remember, you never know who's going to be here. And thank you so much for listening.